And the Creator sends an army, a messed up army that is. Not that Mr. J crap they're trying to shove in our face. The Creator let her know that he's gonna send an army, not Mr. J. Mr. J's the devil. Trying to be slick. You know, she said the Creator. They had to put Mr. J in there. Day of Judgment. Day of Judgment. The Creator also told her, they're trying to throw Mr. J in, they don't fall for that hijack. Mr. J's a devil. They always try and sneak one, hoping you gonna peep on. Creator is going to allow a good army to come. The devil's also going to come. And Mr. J is a devil, so don't fall for the hijack.
Last days that old men will dream dreams and young men will see visions. But what I'm about to share with you is very uncomfortable for me. I've struggled in my spirit whether or not I should do it. But I believe that it's got to be done. And I'm not doing this to call any attention to myself. I'm not a prophet, anything like that. I'm just a pastor and a servant. I want to share with you a vision that I saw 2 mornings ago. What I want to do is I'm going to recreate this picture that I saw in this vision, almost exactly like I saw it. I saw a blue sign and it had holes on each side of it, kind of like a campaign sign stuck in the ground. I kept staring at the sign, and the first thing that I saw was a picture of President Trump, located in the top left-hand corner of the sign. I continued to look And then in the left-hand corner, I saw a picture of Joe Biden. And of course, both their names were above their head. I continued to look and I saw a map of the United States, and the United States was black. Of course, the sign was blue, like I said. The map of the United States was completely black. The next thing I saw was a diagonal red line that started going from the top to the bottom. It was like it was dividing the map of the United States. After that, I began to see the words form at the bottom of the sign. The words said, "The beginning of the end." I kept staring and staring at the sign, and I began to hear what sounded like machine gun fire in the background. Couldn't take my eyes off the sign. And suddenly the bullet fire was getting closer and closer and closer, until the bullets just completely ravaged the sign. They just tore the sign into shreds. Then the vision was over. I don't know what it means, but I do know two things. Number one, I know Jesus is coming soon. Number two, I do believe that we are in a season of repentance right now. And God is sending out warnings.
And as far as
what I saw was a warning. I believe that judgment is about.
As far as we concerned, they don't know who they serve. We don't serve Mr. J. We serve the Creator, because the Creator told us to serve the Creator only and not serve Mr. J. So we don't serve that Mr. J character.
Army, fully armed, waiting to fight this invisible enemy. So there was this balls of fire that was falling from the sky and consuming groups of people. Now, this fire was not targeting single people or a person standing by himself. It just targeted groups of people. So when I approached this army commander and I asked her, "Why are you not doing anything? Why are you just standing around with all your arms and ammunition and tanks and all of that, but not doing anything?" And then she said to me, "We don't know who the enemy is. We cannot fight this invisible enemy. And it's not just here that is experiencing this, but this is happening around the world." And so eventually I left her and I walked towards this huge shopping mall. And when I went into that mall, all I could see was panic. People were buying everything and anything that they saw in the shops. The shelves were empty. People were just running in every direction you can think of. There was this absolute panic and chaos. And so I didn't understand, and I got up from the dream. And so when I tried to interpret it, it just didn't make sense. It sounded like I was living a sci-fi movie. And a few people that tried to help me interpret it also kind of felt the same thing. So I didn't really want to share it at that time. And again, I had a dream in February of this year. And in this dream, I dreamt that the world had gotten into an absolutely lawless state. There were just lawlessness and violence that was just happening all over the place, and the police and government was just powerless to do that. Actually, the police were actually hiding and not doing anything. So I was standing in the street and I saw this poor helpless guy being beaten by this mob of people, and he was crying out for the police, and he was crying out for government, he was crying out for anybody to help him, but just nobody came. And eventually the leader of this group stood up and he screamed out loud, "No one can do anything to us. We are now in control." And I got up from that dream. So anyway, in March, we were hit quite badly by the coronavirus. We started to understand what was happening. And then the dream started to make sense that I had in 2019. And now when I look back again at what's happening around the world, you could start to see that lawlessness and protesting that is starting to happen around the world now coming to pass. Seeing these things, I've decided now to share this dream that I had in 2017, because now it doesn't sound like or feel like a sci-fi movie at all, but it's really what's going on in the world. And so what I saw in the second 3 years in the dream was that the colors started to fade, which means that 2020 was bad, but 21 was going to be even worse. But 2022, the color actually faded completely and it was in black and white. What I can share with you was I saw this lady, and what I saw around her was absolute devastation. There was nothing that was around her. She was standing in this desolate place. But what I could feel and experience that she was going through was she was experiencing pain for the loss of her family. She was experiencing suffering. She was experiencing torment. She was experiencing unexpressible grief that she was going through at that time. It was so painful. It was so difficult to see this woman going through what she was going through, because in that dream of watching what was happening in 2022, I could kind of see what was happening in her life previously, and it seemed that she had a good family, she lived a good life, and everything was so abundant for her. But she had gotten to this place of 2022 where her family was destroyed, decimated. She was standing all alone. The ground around her was just desolate. There was nothing growing. Everything was dry. There was no animals. There was nothing. It was just desolation. And she was standing there, kind of looking filthy, clothes torn, hair disheveled. It was just not pretty. But I think
that as far as years go, 2020 was pretty bad, right? A global pandemic that's currently killed nearly 2 million people worldwide, record-breaking natural disasters such as the Australian wildfires leaving 1 billion animals without homes, as USA Today says. Murder hornets sweeping across North America, the death of Chadwick Boseman. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But we've got high hopes for 2021, right? Well, a lot of your 16th century professional doomsayer, occultist, and black hat enthusiast Nostradamus. In the century since he lived, Nostradamus has become synonymous with seeing the future and occult prophecy. He was born Michel de Nostradam in France in 1503, one of 9 children of a wealthy grain dealer living in Saint-Rémy de Provence. Though few details exist concerning his childhood, researchers believe that he exhibited a high degree of intelligence from an early age, and mastered Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and mathematics through the tutelage of his doting maternal grandfather, Jean de Saint-Rémy. It's also believed that it was through his grandfather that Nostradamus was introduced to the science of celestial astrology, as well as the ancient divination rites of Jewish mysticism. Nostradamus had Jewish heritage, but his paternal grandfather, Guy Gassonet, had taken the name Nostradam after converting to Catholicism to avoid persecution during the Inquisition. Per biography, the young Nostradamus was bright enough to enter the University of Avignon at the tender age of 14, where he was to study medicine, though was forced to abandon his studies with the outbreak of plague. Dedicated student that he was, Nostradamus wasn't going to let a little thing like plague get in his way. After resuming his studies at the University of Montpellier in 1522, Nostradamus traveled to France as a plague doctor. Accused of heresy after a controversial remark about a religious statute, Nostradamus left France for the Mediterranean, where it is believed he experienced a religious awakening. He eventually returned to his hometown in 1547, where he embraced the occult and composed many written works, including his Book of Predictions, for which he is best remembered today. Nostradamus gets cited a lot for predictions that haven't actually come true, such as 1999's Great King of Terror coming from the sky to destroy the world, or 2008's global famine. In other cases, people just hear what they want, such as the 2 steel birds will fall from the sky on the Metropolis prophecy referring to the World Trade Center attacks on 9/11. Or at the very least, if Nostradamus' prophecies haven't come true, then his fans can keep their favorite soothsayer off the hook by claiming that they misinterpreted things. As the Saturday Evening Post tells us, all of Nostradamus' prophecies come from his 1555 book Les Prophéties, in English, The Prophecies. The book contains 942 quatrains, which are just 4-line poems, that have been interpreted and reinterpreted over the centuries. Most recently, some believe that he predicted the outbreak of COVID-19 as express outlines, and his predictions for 2021, they definitely up the apocalyptic ante. First on the list for 2021, why nothing less than a zombie apocalypse, of course, as the New York Post outlines. But don't go running for your machete just yet. The line merely reads, "Few young people, half dead to get a start," which sounds more like a high school social studies class than anything. After that, we've got the usual biblical disaster stuff. The great mover renews the ages. Rain, blood, milk, famine, steel, and plague. That line has some thinking it refers to coronavirus-related food shortages. Following this is a line that believers ascribe to asteroid 2020 BT4, which back in November 2020, per the New York Post, squeaked by Earth at a distance of 250 miles. In the sky, one sees fire and a long trail of sparks. Remember, though, that Nostradamus was more of a middling-tier poet than he was a luminary visionary. As history tells us, even back in his day, he was regarded by his peers as being all loosey-goosey with his prognostication. Apparently, he was a better doctor than he was a prophet, as he routinely prescribed a very sensible regimen of a low-fat diet and lots of fresh air. He even created a vitamin C lozenge from rose hips for plague victims. And his visions? He meditated at night while staring into a bowl of water filled with herbs. Not quite a peyote trip, but hey, it helped him write a book curious enough for history to remember it. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more grunge videos about history, music.
The Simpsons have been known to have a writer's room full of modern Nostradamuses. Nostradami? Anyway, the point is, these folks are fortune tellers on a level we haven't seen since biblical times. So what does King Homer and the gang have in store for us in 2021? Let's look at some times The Simpsons saw into the future and why some folks are freaked out about what they see coming for 2021. Since the dawn of Homer, we've seen The Simpsons make predictions from Super Bowl wins to NSA surveillance scandals to tiger attacks and magic shows. Sorry, Siegfried and Roy, but to be fair, you didn't need to be The Simpsons to see that one coming. Just in the season 6 episode Lisa's Wedding alone, they predicted video chat, smartwatches, and the construction of the Shard building in the London skyline 17 years before it was built. It's not just the older classic seasons either. In season 21, they had Homer on the U.S. curling team beating Sweden for gold 8 years before the exact matchup in Pyeongchang. In season 23, they knew Lady Gaga would be in the Super Bowl halftime show, although when she didn't take their cue on a fireworks projecting bra because, well, you know, divas probably. Even when they're wrong, they're right. When season 11 came out in 2000, would you have expected to picture President Donald Trump conceding to President Lisa? Hey, don't get mad at me. I voted for Kodos. While we're on voting, they predicted in 2008 voting machines where people try to vote for one candidate and the machine selected another, only to have that happen in the very next presidential election when a voting machine wouldn't let a voter select then President Obama. It didn't count, relax. How about some science? Homer becomes an inventor in the 10th season and writes an equation on a chalkboard. Years later, when scientists discovered the Higgs boson, also known as the God particle, look it up, nerds. Well, it turns out that the mass was similar to Homer's work. Three-eyed fish in rivers, mutant tomatoes, stealing grease for cash, it's all been thought of by the ghosts of Springfield past. You might call them writers, but I'd call them prophets of Evergreen Terrace. Oh, and did I mention that they also called Disney acquiring the rights to The Simpsons themselves? Smart like a group of 20th century foxes. So, what has the internet community all up in arms? Well, I mean, besides that, and that. Okay, so their arms are always up on something, but what I'm trying to segue casually to is the fact that in the recent Halloween episode, known to fans as the Treehouse of Horrors, the writer's room was especially sour on the outlook of America in 2021. Oh, haven't we had enough of this year? Well, someone left some black licorice in their candy bowls because they painted a pretty bleak picture of where America will be in a year's time. Firstly, they start us in nice and casual life with a general apocalypse, since Homie forgot to vote. He slept through it, and by the time Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2021 appears on screen, well, let's just say those killer robots are a little worse to Hans Moleman than your typical footballer in the groin. As Hans puts it in the way only his kind wrinkled peanut can. The divinations don't end there. Fans have noted after the election that the map actually shown on screen in the episode pretty closely matches what the final electoral college map ended up being. Some of the states that flipped from red to blue match up. This could be a sign that someone in Springfield is a close observer of substandard polling, but fans are not convinced. How the creators of the show know this information is anyone's guess. Maybe these oracles traded their souls for donuts, or perhaps guest star Lucy Lawless put it best when she said, "A wizard did it." Sure, we could flatly assume that they're just a bunch of soothsayers who landed a cushy Hollywood job to settle their outstanding gambling debts, but that would just be too easy. The truth is, the show has always held up a mirror to society, which has influenced society in turn. Paul McCartney responded to a 50-year-old fan letter, as happened in an episode where Marge painted an homage to Ringo. As one of the original and longest-standing writers, Al Jean said in an article with the BBC, if you make enough predictions, then 10% 90% will turn out to be right. Since much of the writing takes place long before it's animated, the creators are sometimes forced to project months ahead of the airing of an episode, so they'll make assumptions to seem timely. Just this year, in a 2020 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Simpsons writer Bill Oakley spoke candidly about how the show has been eerily accurate on their predictions. There are very few cases where The Simpsons predicted something. It's mainly just coincidence because the episodes are so old that history repeats itself.
We're through the looking glass here, people.
The reason The Simpsons have been in our homes and hearts for this long is because they've always known where we've been guides where we're going. For years, the residents of Springfield have been holding up a mirror to our modern society and sneaking in historical context to the point that they've made history themselves. What parts of their 2021 predictions do you see coming true, and do you have any predictions of your own? Share below in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe for more from us at Screen Rant.